Dr. Day, before we went to break, I just mentioned to you the day that I had that epiphany when I realized that doctors understand disease, but they don't really seem to understand health or how to get you there. Why is that?
Well, they don't understand disease either. If you look at any medical textbook, it will say in there they don't know the cause of virtually all disease. They don't know. Well, the answers are all in the medical literature, but we're not taught it in medical school because the pharmaceutical companies control most of what's taught to medical students because the pharmaceutical industry provides most of the funding for research at medical schools. They get millions of dollars of funding from the pharmaceutical companies, and so it's the old golden rule, he who has the gold rules. And so the pharmaceutical companies control it. They don't want doctors to know how to get people well. They want doctors to only give drugs. So doctors learn what drug you use for each disease, but the drugs never cure the disease. They only suppress the symptoms. The disease continues to go along. The other thing is, why would you go to a doctor for your health anyway? Because doctors have a shorter life expectancy than the general population, and they have a higher suicide rate. So they obviously do not know about health. You're right. We are not taught about nutrition, but don't hang on that. A few schools now are teaching nutrition, but they're really teaching the pyramid, which is put together by the meat and dairy industry. And so I think Twinkies and Ho-Hos are at the top of their pyramid, but we have to learn what causes disease. And as I said, I had been taught all the propaganda that every other doctor is taught. And I didn't hear all of your introduction of me, but I've been an orthodox doctor for decades. And doctors are not taught what causes disease. When I developed cancer, I said, I'm not going to do chemo and radiation because they both cause cancer. How can I get well from cancer if I take a treatment that actually causes the disease I already have? And most patients do not understand that every doctor knows that chemotherapy and radiation cause cancer. And so I started searching the medical literature, and amazingly, I found out that all the causes for cancer are well documented in the medical literature. And that's what I talk about on my DVDs and in my workbook. In my workbook called Getting Started on Getting Well, which is 300 pages long, and it's 8.5 by 11. I have 17 pages of abstracts, easy to understand abstracts from the finest medical journals in the world, showing why the plan I use to get well from cancer works. It's all in the medical literature, but we're never taught it in medical school.
So what you're saying is the bottom line is profits for the pharmaceutical companies. We're not surprised to hear that.
Not only for the pharmaceutical companies, but for organized medicine. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that your doctor wants you to be sick, but I am telling you that your doctor does not really want to know about how to get you well, because in California, these ogre forces have been so strong that if you treat any cancer patient with anything other than chemoradiation and surgery in California, you will lose your license, okay? And they're trying to do that throughout the country. So then you have no choice, and these treatments are killing people right and left. And I remember when I was a young doctor, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, so I wasn't, doing all of these chemo treatments and all on patients, but I would send the patient. I did some surgery that took out tumors and things before I knew better, and I was sitting having lunch with one of my friends who was just a year behind me in medical school. We both finished. We were both on the faculty at UC San Francisco, and she was a radiation oncologist, meaning she gave radiation treatments to cancer patients. And we were sitting there having lunch, and she looked at me, and she was dejected, and she shook her head. She says, I got to get out of this. I said, what do you mean? She says, I got to get out of this business. I got to get out of this business. She says, they all die. Now, that's from the horse's mouth. You see? The doctors who treat this, they know that. They know that it doesn't work. But if they do something different, first of all, they're going to have to quit their practice, and all of their training's gone. And so I mean, I could never go back and practice by giving out drugs. That's why I try to educate the public on how to get well. And I got well at home by just changing the things that actually caused my cancer in the first place. I gave myself cancer. And I'm a physician. I gave it to myself because nor any other physician knew or knows with other physicians how to get well.
Well, you know, the fact is that I believe that God gave us everything in nature to care for our bodies, and we just have to educate ourselves. My guest is Dr. Lorraine Day, and we're discussing alternative cancer methods of healing the body and allowing the immune system to do its job, which God intended for us. Tell me, Dr. Day, where in the body does cancer actually begin to grow? Where does it start?
All over. Well, cancer really, what you may be talking about, it begins in the colon, whether you have breast cancer or brain cancer or any place else, because, but it doesn't totally begin in the colon. As I said, the three main things that cause cancer are malnutrition, which is poor nutrition, dehydration, and stress. But when people don't eat right, they eat meat, poultry, fish, dairy, eggs, sugar, all the substitute sugars and all the additives that are in food, their intestine works very slowly, and the toxins are not taken out of their body rapidly. They get constipated, and then they reabsorb those toxins, and then it goes into their bloodstream, and it goes throughout the body. And when they're stressed, that also causes the same problems. It causes a very slow transit time through the intestine, so you reabsorb the toxins of putrefying and meat, poultry, and fish, and all of this sugar. And then when you're stressed, your body pours out the fight-or-flight hormones from your adrenal glands, which will pour out cortisone, which suppresses your immune system so you cannot fight disease. And as you well know, every time you eat sugar, it will paralyze your immune system for 5 to 6 hours. Every time you're angry, you will paralyze your immune system for 5 to 6 hours. When you have a happy spirit and you laugh, you will actually improve your immune system for 24 hours.
That's amazing.
So the whole point is the way we live and eat and handle stress is the reason that we are either well or sick. And people are always looking they want to go to the doctor and get a pill. Well, the pill will not solve the problem. I have one of my DVDs called Drugs Never Cure Disease because they only cover up the symptoms. And so you don't get well by taking drugs. You actually make your body worse. You may feel better for a short time. So what we've got to do is reverse these problems. And on my DVD, You Can't Improve on God, I show how God made the body to heal itself. But we have to stop injuring it. You know, if I, as an orthopedic surgeon, had you come to me as a patient, and you showed me your thumb, and you say, look at my thumb is mangled and it won't heal. And I'd say, well, what happened? You say, well, I hit it with a hammer. And I say, well, when did you do that? And you say, I do it every day. Well, the first thing you got to do is stop hitting your thumb with a hammer, you know, and then it will start to heal. The body is designed to heal itself. If you cut your hand, it will automatically heal unless you keep picking it open or put dirt in it or something. The body is designed to heal as soon as you stop injuring it. And people don't realize they're injuring their bodies by the way they're eating. They're injuring their bodies because they're not exercising. They're injuring their bodies because they're not drinking enough water. They're injuring their bodies because they're going to Starbucks and every place else and getting these huge amounts of caffeine. They're injuring their bodies with everything that they're doing, how they're handling stress. They're not getting enough sunlight. They're not getting enough fresh air. Cancerous tumors grow twice as fast if you're breathing indoor air compared to outdoor air. A woman can reduce her risk of breast cancer by 66% by doing one thing that's free, and that is exercising 4 hours a week. Your doctor doesn't even know that. That's in the medical literature, but the only one who publicized that was someone who could make money off of it, and it was Nike shoes.
There you go.
Okay? Well, so the whole point is the AMA, organized medicine, and the pharmaceutical companies do not want you to be well. Now, your individual doctor doesn't know that, But he or she, just like I, was propagandized to be the tools of these people who are running the big business of the medical industrial complex. So,
well, your awakening came because of you got ill. Do you think you would ever have had an awakening about all this had you not yourself been through that personally?
Actually, my awakening came before I got ill. How I happened to do this was when all the information, when I was at San Francisco General and the AIDS disease epidemic was absolutely exploding in San Francisco beginning in 1981. And I had operated on thousands of AIDS patients, and this was becoming very dangerous for us as healthcare workers. And the Centers for Disease Control and the public health authorities and the government all was saying, oh, you know, it's not dangerous. You guys are just wimps if you don't want to take this risk. Well, they said healthcare workers cannot get AIDS from a needle stick. They said that for a long time, and I said, you guys have to be crazy. You say drug addicts can get it, but healthcare workers can't? I mean, what is going on? Well, of course, I found out later, after the first one was publicized, the first healthcare worker that got AIDS from a single needle stick was a nurse at my hospital. And I later found out that the CDC had known for 2 years of others who had gotten AIDS, and they covered it up, all right? And so I was on the warpath, and I started speaking out. And when I did on a lot of national programs, I got letters from people who said, you think there's a cover-up in AIDS? You ought to see the cover-up in cancer cures. And I thought, oh, you know, this is crazy. I would know about it, you know, because I'm a doctor. Well, no, the general public knows more than the doctors about these things. And so somebody sent me a book, and I started reading it, and I was shocked. And here it was documented. All these people can get well from cancer by natural methods. And so I spent a year, by that time I spent a year going around the country interviewing people who had gotten well from cancer by natural methods. And I found people who had liver cancer, pancreatic cancer biopsied by regular surgeons at regular hospitals and refused chemo and radiation. And here they were 12 and 14 years later, totally well and cancer-free. And I thought, how come we don't know this? And so I started a radio show like yours, which was called Truth Serum. And I started interviewing alternative practitioners and trying to expose this. And during that time, I found out I had cancer, too. So I at least knew the basis. I knew that you had to change your diet, because one thing that was common with all these people who had gotten well was they changed to a totally vegan, vegetarian diet and eliminated sugar and additives and things like that. That used to be enough 60 years ago to get a person well. It is not anymore, because life is far too stressful. People are living very different from how they lived 60 to 100 years ago. And so I had to change many other things about my life, which are all on my DVDs. I have a DVD called You Can't Improve on God, which gives exact 10-step plan that I use to get well. And then I've got one called Diseases Don't Just Happen, and one called Cancer Doesn't Scare Me Anymore, because I show what the doctors want to do to you, which will just make you worse in the long run, and how you can't cut cancer out, and I lead you through what they will tell you to do and why it will make you worse. And then I have a number of other DVDs, because I found out over time that one of the biggest problems is people don't believe. They don't believe that you can get well this way because they have been propagandized so much. If you tell a lie long enough, people will begin to think it's the truth. But just because a lot of people believe a lie does not make it into truth.
That's true. I wanted to ask you about water. You know, several years ago, someone suggested I read a book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water, and I was totally amazed to learn about how many autopsies show up dehydration of certain organs. Why is water so important to our health, and how much do we need to drink every day?
Well, yes, that book was written by Dr. Batman Delage, who was a friend of mine, and unfortunately he's dead, but his book is excellent. I offer it on my website. It's critical to getting well. The body is 75% water. The brain is 85% water. We lose 10 glasses of water from our body every day just by living. If you don't replace those 10 glasses, your body is going to eventually get sick. And so you have to replace that. And people say, well, I don't like water. Well, grow up. All right? That's what we said when we were little kids. When we're grown up, we have to do what's right for our body, not what we like. And after you start doing it a while, you will like it. You will like the way it feels. All you have to do is look at a plant that hasn't been watered and how drooping it is, and then you water it, and in a couple of hours it's standing tall, and that's what's happening to your body, only it's more slowly, and the lack of water is one of the causes of chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and everybody's dragging their bodies around, and it's a major cause of Alzheimer's. Because all of the neurotransmissions in the brain that transmit a thought from one ganglion